Awesome. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Katie Stevens. I'm the president of the Clinical Ross Emergency Medicine Interest Group. This is a collaboration with the Clinical Ross Surgery Interest Group tonight. We are very excited to have Dr. Parmenter, and she has a colleague, Ben Nolasco, here with us tonight to talk about military medicine and their past. And how they got there, and also being from Ross, right? So all the things that you want to know. I do ask that if you guys have any questions, please put them in the chat and we will answer them at the end of the presentation. So without further ado, Dr. Parmenter, would you like to introduce yourself so we can get to know you?
Yeah, sounds good. Is there a way that I'm able to take over the view to show a PowerPoint?
Yeah, you should be able to share your screen right now. So if you go to the bottom, share screen, and then it should allow you to do that.
Let's see, maybe it'll give me a different view here. Doo-doo-doo. Well, for some reason, let's see. Sorry, everyone. Settings. It is not giving me the option, but that's okay. So my name is Sarah Parmenter, and I went to Ross and graduated in 2019. So I was part of the group in Dominica, and Ben Nolasco is joining on this group as well. Him and I started together. And let's see, somebody's saying
I just
something.
made you the host, so let's see if that helps.
Okay, cool. Let's see. It's not giving me, so we use this for all of our M&Ms and stuff, and normally there is an option for share screen. For some reason, it might be that I'm on a Mac, but that's okay. I promise my PowerPoint doesn't have anything exciting and I can send it to you. It's more or less just to keep me on track. I'm viewing somebody else's screen. That's cool. Anyway, so I was born and raised in Sacramento, California. And I was in the Air Force Reserves, enlisted previously. And let's see, somebody's saying it seems to be working for them. That's cool. For some reason, it's not working for me. Sorry, bud. Yeah, I use it all the time for surgery, M&Ms. It tells me I have the options of security, participants, chat, pause recording, reactions. Under settings, it tells me I can give a thumbs up or change my background, and then I can stop incoming video. That's okay. I promise there's nothing exciting on the PowerPoint, but what I would be talking to you about. All right, so anyway, I was in the Air Force Reserves previously enlisted, so that means that I was not an officer previously, as before I had my degree. I was a loadmaster on the C5. It's kind of a cool job, nothing to do medical, just a lot of math, doing balancing and different weights and calculations for a big cargo plane. Went all around the world. That was super cool. I've been to tons of different countries with the Air Force and had a great time, and they helped pay for part of my degrees after that. So that was cool. And then after that, I actually went and got a degree as a licensed physical therapy assistant, because I was pre-med initially, but I didn't really have the kind of knowledge or funds to go straight into med school. No one in my family had ever had a degree before or anything like that. So I was just kind of winging it, right? We've all kind of, I'm sure plenty of us can relate. And after that, I went and started working full-time in physical therapy, but I knew I still wanted to go into medicine and be a surgeon. So I went back to school and ended up at Ross like you guys. We all have our story of how we ended up there. But as you know, I'm sure you've heard with Ross, it is what you make of it. It's kind of scary being an IMG. Sometimes you don't know what kind of opportunities you may or may not have coming from the stigma of IMG. But luckily, Ross has a good name out there. I'm telling you, you guys will be okay if you just continue to work hard. And so I was, pretty lucky. I matched into general surgery, which is what I always wanted to do. I didn't have a backup plan. I didn't apply to anything else. So for those of you applying to surgery, You will have some people tell you you have to have a backup plan. And I honestly don't think that that's true because it kind of shows that you're not fully committed. Um, Now, with that being said, you also obviously still have to be reasonable, right? You can't have like crappy scores or have like horrible interviews and not have a backup plan. So be realistic within your own means. I'm not like, a rock star by means, but I did graduate with honors and had like pretty good step scores. So that was helpful. I had like 13 interviews for all categorical positions. And I was really lucky. I ranked into matched my number one position for surgery. Um, and right off the bat, I knew I wanted to go back into the military, but I wasn't sure what avenue I was going to take. And so that's what we're here to talk about, right? Like, there's so many options. And actually, Dr. Nolasco, Ben Nolasco, who's on this call too, him and I were on the island together. He's prior Army, and we both really enjoyed our time in the military. I was Air Force, he was Army, and we both knew like we probably wanted to go back in, but we weren't sure what direction we wanted to go. And we actually started a military medicine interest group on the island. It was pretty short lived because after that, like the hurricane took everything out and everything kind of like, went haywire. And I think just kind of like the core groups reformed, which makes sense because it's kind of like a niche group. So I'm glad we're all here to talk about this now. And we went our separate ways. Ben, I'll let him talk whenever he wants to tell his little quick story. But he went into family medicine and he's in Nevada and he signed up for the Air Force. He got smart, didn't go back in the Army and decided to join the Air Force, cross into the blue, as they say. And he's doing the reserve route, which is awesome. I was in the reserves prior, and I think it's a great opportunity to kind of have two lives. I decided to go all in, and I'm contracted for the active duty side now. Why you would want to go into the military, everyone is going to have a different reason. And you have to kind of think about why you would want to go into the military. So one is service to our country, right? So at the end of the day, it's a commitment and it is a service. You're giving yourself to service to the country. It's not just all about, for yourself, because there will be things that you maybe don't want to do that you're going to have to do because you're an officer and a physician. You have two jobs. So you're not just an emergency room doctor. You're an emergency room doctor and a captain, right? So you have two roles. But it's really cool because you get leadership training in the military that you don't get as a civilian physician. You're expected to be a leader as a physician. Wherever you go, you're a leader. Whether you're in a clinic, minute clinic, or you're in an ER, or you're at a big academic university teaching, you're a leader in one fashion or another. And the military gives you that training to be a leader, which is nice. So even if you only join for a few years, that is some lifelong learning that no one can ever take away from you. You get to practice medicine in unique environments around the country and around the world. You may go into residency to be an ER doctor, internal medicine, general surgery, but there's so much more you can do in the military after that residency that you would never be able to do as a civilian, just with the unique opportunities that the military has. There's a wide variety of career paths outside of regular practice. I'll list a few of those later on. You get insurance coverage, which is nice. As a surgeon, one thing that you frequently, have to worry about is malpractice insurance and your own medical insurance and life insurance and all of these insurances. They add up. They add up. There's like an insurance for everything, right? Well, in the military, you're covered for all of those insurances. So that's pretty cool. And then, of course, you can get loan repayment or loan forgiveness. There's different ways that your loans can kind of get taken care of in the military, and it depends on which contract you choose. Hopefully that makes sense, and I can explain a little bit more about that. So branches of the military service. You would have to choose which branch you'd want to go into. There's Air Force, active duty, reserves, and guard. Army, active duty, reserves, and guard. Navy only has active duty and reserves, no National Guard. And then there's the U.S. Public Health Service, which they become physicians for the Coast Guard, the Native American reservations, and public health service officer positions. It's not the armed forces, but it is a service to the country. And so they have some similar loan repayment options as well, but it's not the military. It's not the armed services. But that's something people can look into as well. So what's the difference between active duty and reserves? A lot of people kind of know the obvious, right? Active duty, you're full time, reserves, you're part time. But what does that commitment entail for you? So when I was in reserves previously, what that meant for me was 1 weekend a month, you have an assigned weekend, an assigned Saturday and Sunday that you go into your unit and do unit training assignments. As a physician, that oftentimes is just keeping up on your continuing education, your CPR. You'll do like different training drills, things like that, based off of your specialty. You'll have like little meetings in your squadron. It's very infrequently will you actually be participating as a physician on a Saturday or Sunday, right? That's your unit training activity. And then 2 weeks out of the year, you have to do a 14-day in a row active duty time. A lot of people do it in the summer, but you can kind of do it whenever that you actually are like active duty for those 2 weeks. And for that time, you may actually act as a physician or not. And then Ben Nolasco just commented. He put his email there if you guys want to contact him. Ben, do you want to talk really quick about kind of like what on your side, how things have been for signing up for the reserves?
Sure thing. Well, thank you again, Dr. Parmenter,
Dr. Nolasco.
Captain.
Sure.
It's nice to be here. Of course, Ross for life, right? Once you're graduate from Ross, you're a lifetime Rossi. You just connect with other Rossies, and just to see it, all the other Rossies out there that are attendings now, you're kind of have shared camaraderie. Once again, I'm Dr. Benjamin Nolasco. What Dr. Parmer said. We were in school together in medical school, and we kind of went our separate ways. I went to back to Nevada for the family medicine program. I'm currently a chief resident here, and currently looking for jobs right now. So as far as the Air Force Reserve is concerned, it's a bit different than the active duty. Because first of all, you can be anywhere you want to practice, like in a civilian job, your primary job once you get out and start practicing. But also at the same time, you have duty, or you have this like requirement that you have to become an Air Force military person, 1 weekend a month and 2 weeks a year. And that doesn't include any deployment and stuff. So if you are deployed, or your unit gets deployed, then that can go from anywhere from 30 days to 60, 90, or however long. But anyways, I chose the reserves because I wanted to didn't want to relive my my olden times when I was back in the Army, as an enlisted. I just wanted to continue serving as much as I can. I'm in the older generation, but with the military, if you're a doctor, there's not really a limit for a lot of things. Even I think there's some medical conditions that you can have as well, that you can have waiver for. So there's many things. So how I went about the Air Force Reserve, actually there was no contact information, even on the Air Force website. It was hard for me to reach out to an Air Force Reserve recruiter. And there was only I think a handful of them that actually worked with medical students, or the doctors that that they're recruiting for. And so you'd have to know a specific person. You have to scourge the internet. The good thing is I have this recruiter. So if you guys are interested, if you guys don't want to do active duty and just want to do the reserve 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks a year, contact me, and I have the contact for that. It'll be easier. The process wasn't, that bad. It wasn't horrible, but it is military, so there's a lot of things that you have to go through, background checks and all this security, things, and the maps, everything else. There's joining the military. But once again, it's something that I wanted to do, for I guess the rest of my career. I just want to have my own civilian job, and at the same time I have like, put on the uniform the weekend or, on annual training or whatnot. And, it's a good thing. What else? What else can I say?
Ben, how long did it take you from like, I know we kind of talked about this a little bit. How long did it take you like from you decided to do the FAT program, right? Like how did you decide that you wanted to do the financial assistance like program, like sign up in residency versus wait till the end of residency? I'll talk about like the differences between the two, but what made you decide that you wanted to sign up now? Like why not wait?
Yeah, so I wanted to sign up because the stipend that the military is offering, was hard to turn down. At the same time, I have family, and so like living on a residency wage, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah,
Like
for
you can't, yeah, it's it's hard, it's tough, and
Yeah.
so it definitely helped. So that's why when I was looking in different branches, I was looking for, something that would definitely give me some benefit whenever throughout the residency. So when did I reach out? I reached out actually when I got my ECFMG. I think the recruiters wouldn't talk to you if you don't have your ECFMG.
Yeah.
If you don't have if you didn't match. I think that's one of the things. As an IMG, it's just very difficult for us to get into the military. But
Yeah.
once you match or pre-match or whichever one, once you have that contract, boom, you can start your process as early as was that February or March or something when
Mhm.
find out on match. Yeah. So as early as that, and then go through the recruiter, send in all your documents, your birth certificate, all this stuff, and then go through the physical and stuff. Mine took a little bit, like maybe like 4 months altogether, just
Mhm.
because there's things that happens in like the government stuff where they have to send the scroll to the president of the United States to be signed and stuff. That takes a long time. But once that gets signed, and then you start your program, then you can start as early as that day one to receive, the stipend and stuff. You swear in, and then you get your ID, you get all the stuff, and you're like an actual Air Force captain, at that point.
Nice. And what made you decide to go Air Force this time instead of Army?
So, back in the Army, it was kind of crazy.
Mhm.
But I was really looking at the Air Force. Actually, I was kind of hesitant because I didn't think that, I would qualify. Because how if you were in a certain branch before, like Army, it's hard to switch to Air Force. If you were in Air Force before, it's kind of easier to, to glide right in. But
Yeah.
if you're a doctor, it's a little bit different. Like everything is just reset. Like they'll accept you, whatever you have. So
Yeah. Cool, cool. So somebody asked, you signed up as soon as you matched. Yep. So Ben signed up
yep,
as soon as he matched, as soon as he was eligible. You don't
yep.
have to do that.
You don't have to do that, right?
Yeah, but that's a smart way to like take advantage
Yeah,
of the whole program during residency. Cool.
right.
What type of are you going to try to do a specialty of family medicine, or are you going to stay like strict, just like keep it simple family medicine?
Yeah, at first I was thinking of specializing in I think the first year, but after that it died down and it's like I need to work. I need to work. I need to make some money.
Yeah.
But yeah, so no, I'm going straight to the workforce after residency. So I'm actually looking for job. I'm interviewing jobs right now, getting offers. And so I'm just looking at my different options that I have. But I am staying in town, staying in Vegas. So if you
Okay.
guys are coming here, hit me up.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks, Ben. Um, so Ben kind of talked about, the reserve side. So active duty side is that's your job full time. So you're not going to have a civilian job when you sign up. So for me, I knew I wanted to go back in, but I was really struggling with active duty versus reserves. As far as, being a surgeon, there's a big pay discrepancy, or there used to be a big pay discrepancy between active duty and the civilian side. But that has actually gotten better and changed. And so that's why this last year decided to sign up active duty, because they came out with some new bonus structures for surgeons that they didn't have previously. So before it was like, didn't make any sense to go active duty as a surgeon because I'd be making like almost half the pay. But now they have these bonus structures that make it so it's pretty equivocal, which is nice. So that's one thing to consider. And then the reason I didn't do the reserves is because as a surgeon, you already have like such a crazy schedule and you're a lot of times like on call and working weekends. So I didn't want to give up another weekend to the Air Force, right? So then I would only leave like one weekend a month for my family. So whereas oddly enough, if you're active duty, you actually have a better work-life balance as a surgeon, specifically, not necessarily family medicine or other specialties. There's just so many options. But, so for me, I wanted to go active duty and just kind of ride that out to retirement because I really like the military and all of the different opportunities that it gives you. So basically I did the financial assistance program. So when you look online for how to sign up, you'll see opportunities for the HSPS. That's for if you're in medical school. We don't qualify for that in Ross, and you're kind of too late if you're already on this call. So anyone listening to this, the only way you're going to sign up is either the FAP, the financial assistance program, which Ben and I have done, where you sign up in residency, you start getting paid in residency, or you wait and you direct commission when you graduate. And there's pros and cons to both, depending on your specialty or just kind of what you want out of your contract. So the financial assistance program, you sign up in residency, and your contract depends on how many years you're going to get paid in residency. Basically, if you sign up and you are getting paid for 3 years of your family practice, residency, then for the reserves, I think it's like a 2-to-1 ratio, Ben.
That's right. It's
The
2-to-1. So
contract-
they for every year that they give you stipend, then you owe them 2 years.
Yeah. And then so for active duty, it's 1-to-1. So I just signed up for my 4th and 5th year of residency because it's a 5-year program, as you guys know. And so I actually only owe 2 years of active duty. Now, I did that on purpose because I know I want to stay more than 2 years. It's kind of crazy, like, oh, why go through all the trouble, go to officer training school and all this for only 2 years? Well, because then at the end, my FAP contract ends, I can sign a new active duty contract, and then I'm eligible for retention bonuses, which is significant as a general surgeon. I have a chart that I'll send you guys the link to, and you guys can look that up. So it's 1-for-1 for active duty for the FAP. So it doesn't matter what specialty you are. If it's internal medicine, OBGYN, emergency medicine, however many years you get paid in residency is how many years your contract is owed for active duty. 2-for-1 for reserves. What does that pay? It's a $45,000 yearly bonus plus a monthly stipend that after taxes comes out to about $2,600. So all in all, you end up getting, like 70-something thousand dollars extra a year, which is nice for most places. That essentially doubles your salary as a resident. So that's pretty nice. It is taxable income. It's not tax-free. And when you're in, you get counted. You can actually get your ID and have a reserve military card, so you can already have access to go on base and use the commissary and the PX and get tax-free shopping and stuff like that, which is kind of cool. So the process is, Ben nicely described it. I did the same thing. You contact your recruiter, which sometimes that can be the longest process, is finding out which recruiter you're going to talk to, right? Because like the recruiter I initially spoke to when I wanted to do the reserves, I ended up doing that in my intern year. And then I ended up kind of deciding not to do that. I got cold feet and was like, you know what, this isn't going to be worth it. And then they came out with a new bonus structure for surgeons. And I was like, went over, ran everything with my husband, and we decided it was a good idea. And so found a different recruiter. And then you will, message back and forth. First, they'll make sure you're eligible. They'll kind of, they may or may not give you kind of the runaround about Ross. They'll be like, oh, we don't know Ross. Let me see if it's eligible. It is eligible. Obviously, we both have contracts. It's fine. So don't let anyone scare you off that it's not a U.S. school, because obviously we both have contracts to be captains in the Air Force, right? So what if a recruiter isn't sure, it's just because they're new. They change all the time. So maybe they just haven't worked with our school before. So one of my recruiters, when he first started, like I was the first surgeon he had ever worked with. He'd only worked with nurses and dentists. He's never had a surgeon come and like voluntarily want to sign up to be active duty. So he didn't know what to do with me. So it's kind of a process. He had to keep like, oh, let me find out and I'll get back to you, and like email people. And so that was just be patient. Be patient. And then you will send them a bunch of personal documents. They basically have to like send you a bunch of questionnaires on these online portals, make sure you're not like a criminal, and make sure you're a US citizen and things like that. So those are some eligibility requirements, right? Like you do have to be a US citizen, and you have to not be a felon. And there are some basic medical things that you'll have to go through. Like Ben was saying, pretty much everything there's like a waiver for as far as medical stuff. I think there's a few major disqualifying, like type 1 diabetes, I think is a disqualifier because you're not deployable if you're insulin dependent. And age, like we're both old, right? I'll be 39 and Ben's in his 40s. So it's fine if like we're on the older side. And we've both had surgeries and injuries and we somehow got through.
Yeah, we made it.
Yeah, we if we got through,
I
you
know.
children can.
Yeah, exactly.
So once you get through all of that, then your contract comes. And I will say this multiple times: read the fine print. So like I said, my recruiter was new and had never worked as a surgeon before, and he had never done a FAP for a 5-year surgery residency. He had only done like the short-term residencies. So he assumed the minimum contract was 3 years. So he tried to get me to sign a contract for 3 years. And I read the fine print that it's 1-for-1 active duty, minimum 2 years. So if I wouldn't have read the fine print, I would have signed the contract that he had printed up for 3 years. And then I would have missed out on a whole year of getting a retention bonus of like a couple $100,000.
Oh yeah, no,
which is a big deal, right?
Yeah.
So then once you're signed up, you find somebody to swear you in, or you just go to recruiter's office and you sign in and you swear an oath, and you're a commissioned officer. It's kind of crazy. It's like, oh, okay, now you're a captain. Now what do I do? Nothing, really. You don't do anything. In residency, you just do that is your job. Be a resident. That's it.
Yep.
They'll send you orders, and like I got an email that is like, oh, you're going on active duty orders. Your active duty assignment is keep doing what you're doing. It's just logistics things to keep you in reserve status. So you get like a different pay for 2 weeks, then you go back into your regular stipend pay. And that's all it is. It's just logistics. You do have to sign this like accreditation thing once a year that says that you are still within like height and weight standards, and you didn't become a criminal or something like that. Basically, you're just saying that like nothing's changed. And they don't ask you to go through a physical test or anything. Basically, just once you get your physical exam, your height and weight standards, you have to like attest that you're willing to undergo the physical education requirements once you go to officer candidate school, officer training school. So don't stress about that now. Some people have asked me about that previously. It's not that bad. So then once you finish residency, then you'll go to officer training school. So for physicians, it's a shortened officer training school right now. It's like 5.5 weeks in Alabama. And basically you learn the formalities of being a military officer. You learn how to be a leader. You learn how to write reports in a military fashion, wear your uniform, march and salute, customs, and you do have to go through physical education, and you have to go through a PE test. Basically, it's push-ups, sit-ups, and running, and it's all timed and based off of your age and sex. So there's like a chart on the website you can find that's like, oh, what will be my standard requirements? And so you have to be able to meet the minimum standards there. And then after that, you go to your duty location. So like for Ben, he just goes back home.
Yeah. Well, actually, you can choose wherever, because if you're planning on reserves, there's like many reserves unit anywhere in any states. So you can just move anywhere. And if you wish to move again, because your job, job relocation, you can always move. But mostly people just kind of fly to wherever. It's no big deal, because military will pay for your flight, pay for your lodging while you're doing the weekend thing, and then you go back home.
Yeah, for sure. So that's a good deal. And so that's a difference basically when you finish, if you're reserves for this Air Force reserves, you like apply for a job and you have to get like hired on to a squadron, right? I know that was the case when I was in the Air Force Reserves, when I was a load master. Like I went to a squadron and interviewed and everything and like got guaranteed a slot even like before I went to boot camp. Whereas active duty, you get assigned, but you have like a wish list. So going back to the FAP program, you'll attend the officer training school after graduation, not during, no other requirements during residency. So something to be considered is that you will not be eligible for an ascension bonus during the initial service contract, and you will not be eligible for loan reimbursement, but it does count for loan forgiveness for the active duty side. It's a different contract. And then you will gain one of the benefits of doing the FAP program and signing up now is like Ben and I are accumulating years in our grade, not years in service, but years in grade. So that's basically helps with promotions. It doesn't help with pay structure. So when you're an 03, that's what a captain is for the Air Force, you're an 03, but you can also be an 03 with less than 2 years in service, 2 to 4 years in service, 5 to 6, blah, 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 whatever. So for me, I'm an OE3, so or an O3E. So I have 8 years prior service they're giving me for my prior Air Force. I don't know, Ben, if they count any of your time, if you're an OE or you just
Yeah, they counted some of my
O3.
for
Nice.
my time. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So that counts. And what the time and grade helps with is for promotions. So basically by the time we're done with residency and like a year in, we'll qualify to apply to be a major, to be an
Yep.
04.
That's
So
right.
that helps to move you along the pay structure a lot faster. So the other option is to not do the FAP program and do direct commission after graduation. Maybe you're not sure, you don't want to make the commitment during residency, and you really want to make sure that you can get like your, loan payment, or you want to just, wait to get that critical wartime ascension bonus. Then you wait and you sign up when you graduate residency. So for that, you have to pass your initial boards, be board eligible at least. And your contract length varies based off of your bonus structure. It's usually 4 years minimum. And if you have a higher initial pay structure compared to the FAP based off of your bonuses, but you don't get paid anything during residency. So there's tons of opportunities that people should know about. So you can be a flight surgeon in the Air Force. You're not a surgeon. You can be Ben, you can be family medicine, you can be internal medicine, you can be emergency medicine. And basically you practice within that specialty, but you go to a separate aerospace physiology course that the Air Force pays for you to go through to basically be primary care for the air crew. So I'm familiar with that because I was air crew. All I did was fly when I was in the Air Force. And so my primary care doctor was a flight surgeon. Like I got my birth control from a flight surgeon. I never saw a regular doctor because they only take care of aerospace specialties. And you get to go through the altitude chamber and learn about all the physiological pressures of pilots and air crew, which is really interesting. So again, just really cool opportunities that you'd never get as a civilian, but you're still, board certified family medicine physician or internal medicine. We had a professor who's a radiologist, and he was a flight surgeon for the Air Force for fighter pilots, and he got to go on ride-alongs. He got to fly like in the back of their plane every once in a while, which is pretty sweet opportunity, right? But he's a radiologist, so it's just crazy what you can do. You can just do no specialty. You can maintain your own primary care specialty. You can be a pediatrician. You can be an OBGYN, EM, whatever, and you don't have to go do some specialty military thing if you don't want to. Ground surgical team, which is what I'm signed up for right now. Special operations surgical teams, forward surgical teams. Basically, you can be special forces and attached to like a special forces where like you're their individual doctor and you go with them on their deployments. That's typically emergency medicine, surgery, and anesthesia. Critical care air transport, CCAT, is a pretty cool mission in the Air Force. You can be emergency medicine, anesthesia, or critical care board certified. So you can be internal medicine critical care or surgery critical care. and you go to this specialty training. Basically, you maintain an ICU in the air. So on the plane, you're maintaining an intensive care unit in the plane. There's the Sea Star program is really cool. That is specialty for the Air Force, where you go and your duty assignment is a civilian university that is specialty trained, usually in trauma surgery. So they have a big one here in Baltimore at Shock Trauma. So I did all of my trauma surgery training at Baltimore. Shock Trauma is the leading trauma center in the world. They train a lot of Army and Air Force military, and that can be your duty assignment. I met some surgeons there that they've never operated on a military base. They've only been in Baltimore, which is kind of crazy. They also have one in Ohio is a big one as well, and they do a lot of the trauma readiness training. You can be assigned to teach residents. So they have active duty hospitals. The biggest level 1 is in Texas, and for the Air Force, and they're a level 1 trauma center for all the surrounding civilians as well. So you would be a trauma surgeon or whatever type of physician you are for the surrounding community as well. So that's something to consider. You have opportunities to be a squadron leader, so military leadership as well as physician leadership. And the Navy has some really cool specialties where you can become a naval surface warfare medicine on a ship, and you go to specialty training for that. Undersea medicine, you go to a separate training for underwater divers, for submarines, for nukes. Aerospace, they have their own aerospace medicine as well, which is pretty cool. So all those opportunities. So now I'll quickly talk about kind of the pay structure. So the bonus I was talking about, the critical shortage wartime ascension bonus. So I would Google that if I were you. So critical short wartime ascension bonus. And basically it changes every year of who's on this list and what the pay is basically. So it's for a 4-year obligation for active duty. And so for instance, if you're emergency medicine, it's a $400,000 bonus. For general surgery, it's $600,000 bonus. That's the highest bonus you can get. So then if you're to do internal medicine, that's a $250,000 bonus. Family practice, $275,000 bonus. So I look those up. And then that is something that I'm no longer able to get, the Ascension bonus, because I did the FAP program. So that is the difference and kind of the benefit of if you don't do the FAP program and you wait. The reason I didn't is because for different specialties and different branches, they only have so many slots available per year that they can give these contracts to. So last year, they didn't have any general surgery ascension bonuses available for the Air Force. I would have had to have gone and signed up with the Army or Navy, and I didn't want to do that for personal reasons. And so I would not have been eligible for that, even if I was board certified and done with residency. So then I would have been sitting there and be like, okay, do I just sign up without this ascension bonus, or do I go get a civilian job? And there's just like no guarantee. So that's for me. I didn't want to wait and have that unknown of every year, like, is it going to be on a list and approved? Are there going to be enough slots or not? Like, not sure. But if you're on the fence and that's something you want to wait and just like figure it out, then that could definitely be worth it. So what we are eligible for is the retention bonus is, so once you finish with your FAP contract, so for me, it's 2 years, for Ben, it's 6 years. At the end of that contract, if you sign a new contract, you get a retention bonus. And that also varies for contract year. So for general surgery, if I sign a 6-year contract, I will get an extra $125,000 every year, not for the 6 years, but every single year, extra $125,000 plus $52,000 every year, but prorated monthly for being fully qualified general surgeon. And then plus you get like an extra like $6,000 for being board certified. And then on top of that, you get like your regular pay. So you can see that can kind of add up. For family practice, Ben will get an extra $55,000 per year annually, and then $43,000. But that's for active duty. So different bonus structure for reserves.
Yep.
And you can look up all those pay structures. Then you have different pay scales, your base pay scale, and then you have basic allowance for housing and BAS for substance. So this is all for active duty, and then an incentive pay, board certification pay, and the bonus structures. So when all is said and done, my first 2 years active duty, I'll get paid a little bit less than like what a civilian general surgeon would, but you got to think right now I'm getting paid double what all the other residents are getting paid. So it kind of like evens out for those first 2 years. And then after that, I will get paid equivalent, but slightly actually more as an active duty surgeon compared to civilian, depending on where you live. So if you want to go and work for like a private practice, one of my friends went to Arkansas. He has a really good job. He gets paid $500,000 a year, but he works his butt off and he pays a ton of money in his insurance and malpractice and everything like that. So you're not going to make that kind of money in the military, but you have a really good quality of life and family life balance. You get 30 days paid vacation plus all the government holidays. You get retirement benefits, medical benefits. If you ever get deployed or go overseas, that's tax-free, as well as travel benefits. So just kind of a lot going on there, which is nice. So kind of final advice, do your research, read the fine print, and advocate for yourself. Stay active. I think the Air Force is the best all-around option. Personally, just being in the Air Force previously, I went to a lot of different military bases, and the base housing and facilities for the Air Force were always a lot better kept up than the Army. Navy isn't bad. My brothers were both Navy. I just didn't want to end up on a ship. If that doesn't bother you, then Navy is awesome choice, and they have a lot of really cool opportunities. So I'll kind of answer some questions now. So I answered the one from Kendall, the contract length to qualify for all the benefits. So, so hopefully that made sense, right? Like, if you were in the reserves, it's a 2-to-1. Active duty, it's 1-for-1. And the contract that you sign, whether it's if you sign up during residency versus if you sign up when you're done with residency, depends on if you'll get loan forgiveness or loan repayment, I guess. So how that works is they offer I think it's $250,000 for loan repayment, but that's a separate contract, so you can't do it with the FAP program. You do one or the other. But serving in the military counts as for your public service loan forgiveness. So for general surgery, it makes a lot of sense because general surgery, you're already doing 5 years. Boom, I'm halfway to my public service loan forgiveness. So after 5 years in the military, all my loans, bye-bye, go away. And we all have big loans coming from Ross, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. For the active duty side, how often do you PCS as an officer? That's super variable based off of what type of physician you are. There's not like a hard, fast rule. One thing that I will say that the Air Force has now is called a homesteading program. They didn't have this previously, where previously you would change duty stations or be forced to move every 3 to 4 years. Like, oh, you're 3 or 4 years at this duty station are up, and you're now going to have to move to this place, and you just get an assignment and no choice, you're moving. Well, now, if you like where you're at and everyone else in the Air Force likes where they're at, everyone just stays put. Unless there's a location active duty that everyone just jump ship, so to say, and there's no one to fill that slot and they have to put somebody there, then maybe you are the low man on the totem pole, you're the lowest ranking or whatever, and then you get forced to go there. Or you want to, then you can request to PCS. So I spoke with an officer who like did my interview, and he's down in Florida, and he said he's the one that for active duty surgeons, he does all the surgeons assignments, and he really takes into account like what people want, because they want retention. They want to keep people in the military forces as physicians, because it's a lot of people jump ship after the war, so they want to retain people. So if people have reasons why they want to move somewhere or stay somewhere, he really tries to keep that into account, which is nice. Like I spoke to the guy who does that, right? It's like such a niche community. And as far as deployments for the Air Force, they kind of like have to decide who, like what squadron. It goes by as a squadron, not like an individual person. And then for the Army, they just have like somebody that they hire, like a civilian. It's like this really weird protocol, and they like go down, and it's like a lottery type thing. I'm not sure about the Navy, to be honest. As active duty, what are your military requirements during residency? None. Katie said not old, thank you. Kendall said you get all the holidays even as a surgeon. I can't say you get all the holidays, but they're paid holidays, so usually they'll do like a compensation. So say like if it's your turn to be on call for Christmas Day, then you'll get like a compensation, like an extra day off or an extra day paid off separate of that. For depending on what type of surgeon you are, like if you're an elective surgeon at an ambulatory surgery center versus a trauma surgeon, your duty assignments are going to vary, just similar to the civilian world actually. So you can, as a ground surgical training surgeon, just a general surgeon, no fellowship, you can get assigned to an ambulatory surgery center where you do hernias and gallbladders and thyroid surgery and breast surgery and just kind of like all the same day surgery stuff, right? And then if you have a more complicated case, you might need to take them to an inpatient hospital, versus if you're board certified for critical care or for trauma, you might do acute care surgery at a hospital and you have to take call. So then your duty requirements can be different than that ambulatory surgery person. So hopefully that makes sense. You were enlisted for 12 years. You moved so many times. Yes. Oh, sorry to hear that. That definitely sucks. I know that happened to a lot of people. Like, so my brother-in-law right now, he's been in the Air Force for 8 years, and he's been at the same duty location the entire time because of the new homesteading program. So that's pretty cool. All right. Does anyone have any other questions or anything like I didn't touch on? I guess while anyone's thinking of questions, I'll just kind of like, once again, sequence of events, talk to your recruiter, get your paperwork, get your physical clearance, you swear yourself in. In residency, it's very passive. You do absolutely nothing except for paperwork. Then you go to officer training school. And then if you have like a specialty school, you need to go to like ground surgical training. It's like a 2-week, like a little like 2-week course or whatever before you go to your duty station. And then you go to your duty station. And then I was also told for surgeons, they ground you for 1 year before you're eligible for deployment. They want you to kind of get your feet wet, be at your duty station, build up your clinic if you're an ambulatory surgeon, get used to like the operations before they deploy you. So you're not going to like show up and be deployed within a month, unless the needs of the military supersede that and like everyone's at war or something like that, which there's plenty of surgeons to go around, so unlikely. And then I talked about the homesteading program. Do you accumulate leave the whole time you're in residency? Nope. You do not accumulate leave while you're in residency. The only thing you accumulate in residency is time and grade. So you get time towards being an O3.
Which we are considered individual ready reserve, IRR, for that matter.
Yep. So you basically, yeah, that's it. You just accumulate time and grade, which is nice. So by the time I make it to my duty station, I'll be ready to apply for a major. So we'll be like major select kind of. Yep, exactly. So you promote pretty quick. Do you recommend finding a recruiter after matching or during med school, just wrapping up year 3? I would say like right around when you're matching. Basically, like that's when Ben did it. That's when when I was initially thinking of doing the reserves, I talked to a recruiter and started filling out paperwork like right when I matched. And you have to have like that acceptance letter and everything like that, or they won't really move you forward. Like they'll ask you some questions and make sure you're not like a felon and that you're a citizen. But other than that, you're not going to go forward until you have a residency slot. So it's up to you if you want to like find a recruiter sometime around that time and just say like, hey, I want to sign up. I'm about to match. Start getting your paperwork together. That's great. They just won't be able to process anything until after that. Yeah. Kendall, what branch are you in, or what have you been doing in the military?
I was Air Force for 12 years, and then I was an ammo troop.
Oh, cool. That's
Yeah.
awesome. So are you thinking of going back in?
Yeah, I basically want to be you when I grow up. So I'm going towards surgery right now. I'm on the surgery board and everything, and I'm just started my 3rd year though, so I still got a little while till I get to match. And then hopefully I'm thinking about going back into active duty, kind of like what you were saying, because I did 7 years active duty and then 5 years reserve, so I could go back and do all my bachelor's degree stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say like the reserve thing definitely takes a toll on the personal life.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think like if I was family medicine or IM, like reserves would probably make a lot of sense. I have a surgeon that is one of my attendings in the army that's in the reserves, and she just absolutely hates it, probably because it's the army, to be honest with you. But
That's right.
that's right.
Hoorah, right?
But I think a lot of it is just the toll that the reserves takes on you as a surgeon, specifically because you already work so hard as a surgeon that when you do have a spare weekend, you're like, oh, I have to go to my other job. And it's as a surgeon, it's just kind of, you're just kind of, excuse my language, you're just like dicking around for the weekend. You're not doing surgery stuff really as a reservist. And the pay is not worth it as a surgeon either, because you could work that weekend, you could like pick up a shift somewhere and make several $1,000s versus a
That's right.
couple $100.
Yeah.
You get paid the same on the weekend, whether you're family medicine, surgery, whatever. Like it doesn't matter. Your weekend pay is your weekend pay. And like, yeah. So that reminds me of another random benefit. So when the Air Force is not busy, I talked to a couple of surgeons that are in right now, one that's getting out, one that's staying in. And if their hospital is kind of like on the slow side for elective surgeries, they actually get approval to work at like a civilian hospital and just like pick up shifts, locums tenens, just kind of like per request or need, and make a few extra $1,000 if they want to. Like you don't have to, obviously, but if you wanted to, for whatever reason, if you're like a super go-getter and you just want like you're super money hungry, you can get approval from your squadron commander to do that. So I know a couple of guys that have done that at local hospitals because they want to work in like maybe acute care surgery once a month, but they do like robotic surgery during the week for the Air Force. So that's a kind of an interesting opportunity. Yeah. Better than doing base beautification. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you won't be doing that as a physician.
But in the reserve, if you are interested in reserve and didn't want to do the week in a month, 2 weeks a year, they do have an option called IMA, where you bunch up all your weekend and weekend drills and 2 weeks, and you just bunch it up in like a month or so for the year, and then you're done for the year.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that.
Yep.
You could do that. Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, I guess that's probably makes a lot of sense for physicians.
Mhm.
When I was in the reserves as a loadmaster, that was not an option because you had to maintain your flying status, and you had to maintain all kinds of like flight certifications and stuff like that. So you could skip like a couple of months, but then you would become ineligible to fly.
Right.
Yeah, but that's a pretty cool option.
Yeah, for sure. Because for some people, it's like
Mhm.
they didn't want to do one weekend and they just want to bunch it up and
Yeah,
do it all at once.
yeah. One of my aunts was a flight nurse practitioner, so not applicable to us, but she was within the primary care realm. And she loved it, and she was in the reserves forever, and she would go on active duty orders periodically, and you're protected by your civilian job for people who worry about that in the reserves. So if you have a nice cush reserve civilian job that you like and something happens with the military where you get put on a deployment for say 3 months, your job is protected legally. They cannot give you any ramifications when you come back. They can't give your
That's
job.
right. And there's also there's some companies, especially big companies and stuff, that if you're a reservist and then you get deployed or activated, then they still pay for the difference. Because sometimes your private job, you make a lot more than being in the military, and they'll pay the difference. It's called differential pay.
Nice.
Yeah. And they'll keep your job and they pay you extra. So you're double dipping to get, the same amount of money that you were getting in your civilian job.
Oh, that's awesome. That's good.
Mhm.
That's good. So that gives you financial protection as well.
Oh yeah.
That's super important. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, you have a question?
Yeah, good evening. Thanks for coming on to enlighten us about the military and medicine. I was thinking if I wanted to do 6 years total service with the military, for instance, from what you're telling me, I could decide to put in 3 years while in residency, and then I'll have to pay them back 3 years after residency, correct?
So you say you want to serve 6 years?
Yes.
So your time in residency does not really count as service. It does not count towards retirement. That's important to know. So it does not count as time in service. You only get time accumulation during that rank, which helps you promote faster. And you get paid during residency a stipend and a bonus that equals about $75,000 per year. But that does not count as being military service.
Yeah. Okay. So if I don't mind, let's say I just want to dip in my leg and take it out when I'm when I'm done. In my head, I want to spend 6 years. I don't really care about the long-term time service or all those benefits.
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
So and I choose to do that. So if I have a 5-year residency, for instance, or say 4-year residency, is it possible that I can decide to do 3 years, my first 3 years of residency, and then the last 2 years of residency, I'm not with them, and then when I finish residency, I pay them back 3 years?
So how that works is I signed up kind of halfway through my residency. So general surgery is a 5-year program. I only signed up for my 4th and 5th year of residency. And so I have a contract with the military right now, but I'm not serving. I'm not putting on the uniform or going to a base right now. But when I finish residency, I will do 2 years full time with the military as my service. And then my contract is actually up. I can do whatever I want after that point. I can dip my toes, like you're saying, in the military for those 2 years. But then after that, we part our ways, right? I won't get retirement benefits from them anymore. I won't get any military benefits from them anymore. I will go find my way in the civilian world and go about, we'll part ways. So that is an option. For active duty, it would be 1 for 1. So if you only want to sign up for 3 years of residency, you would owe 3 years of active duty versus what Ben Nolasco is doing, which is 3 years during residency, is 6 years reserves, which is a part-time deal, right? Does that make sense?
And
Yes.
you can't so I think I know what you're asking. You can't just sign up and then not continue all the way. When you sign up on the beginning, you're gonna have to finish that whole program, be in it. You know what I'm saying? So if you're thinking, okay, I'm just gonna do 2 years, the first 2 years of residency, and then the last 2 years, I'm not gonna sign up with them and just owe them 2 years. It's not gonna be like that. Once you sign, you're gonna continue, signing until you finish the whole residency program and then start. So if you're thinking about it, you just have to kind of wait Dr. Palmer was, what she did, just kind of waited out and then, joined after. If just
Okay.
wanted to do some, like a certain amount of time with the military.
Yeah.
So, but with that 6 years now total, will it count towards the public service loan forgiveness?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
gotcha.
Yep. It will.
Thank
I think with the caveat being that, you still have to do 10 years total for the public service loan forgiveness, and it has to be like at a full-time job. So I'm not sure with the reserves, Ben. I don't know if you've touched on this at all. Like,
Yeah, no,
if
it's
you're
not considered.
yeah,
It's
if
not
you're,
considered.
it's not considered, because that's be your full-time job.
That's right.
So if Ben gets a fancy private practice job that is not qualified for public service loan forgiveness because it's private, right? Then he will not qualify for that, even though he's in the reserves, because the
That's right.
reserves is not his full-time job. It'll qualify for me because I'm active duty, so that'll be my full-time job, will be a commitment to the government. So just be careful of that. I don't want people to say like, oh, I'm going to do that for the reserves, and then get whatever full-time job you want, because then you will only be eligible if that place is also qualified by itself. So you can match anywhere and still qualify for public service loan forgiveness, because I know some hospitals, no, you cannot match anywhere and qualify. You have to qualify as somebody that the military has nothing to do with where you match being public service loan forgiveness. You don't qualify because of the military contract in residency, because you're not participating in the military during residency. So I know I forget the name of the corporation, but there's like this big corporation that owns a lot of places in like the Midwest and Florida that's like private. And
Yeah,
HCA, everyone
That's
said,
it.
yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
And so if you match there, you will not qualify during residency.
Yeah, there's a lot of hospitals. You got to check each hospitals when you check for when you match for residency, if they are 503 or nonprofit.
Mm-hmm.
For example, like not all residency will be good for PSLF.
Yeah. So my residency is, I don't know if yours is or not, Ben.
No, it's not. Mine's not.
Oh, that
Yeah, I know. It's not. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so something to consider, especially if you do surgery. In my opinion, it's important or helpful to make sure you go somewhere that does qualify, because that's half of your commitment. Just making your minimum payment during residency, you're halfway to your 10 years, which is a big deal. Unless you know 100% that you want to go do private practice or plastic surgery or something like that, then, do whatever is good for you. And a lot of people do that, and they end up getting like a contract that gives them a bunch of loan forgiveness, or they make like, $500,000 a year, so it doesn't matter. So that's cool. Yeah, for surgery, my first 2 years, I will make like maybe $200,000 a year active duty, not a lot. But then as soon as my next contract goes, I'll be making like between like $350,000, $375,000 a year, which is pretty good for, a job that is doing something you love and a lot of opportunities. So any other questions? Otherwise, I think we'll let you guys go for the night.
I think Kendall had one more question just before we had for the reserves. Do they have ART positions for doctors?
The art positions for doctors. That's a good question. I don't know if they do. I know the art jobs, that's a good deal. I don't think they do, because that's like the GS position equivalent of whatever your civilian job is. And
they do have civilian jobs that are not art. You're a government civilian employee,
yep.
As a doctor, but
Yep.
not military. So you can double dip, like be in a reserve and be on like that sort of
Yeah.
like,
People
like
did it all
doctor
the
program.
time when I was in the Air Force Reserves previously, like as a loadmaster. They would have, you can't have like an art loadmaster position, but like the people who would do like our scheduling, like the schedulers and the travel people, like they all had those jobs. But basically, no, they do not have it for doctors. And you wouldn't really want that because you'd get paid crap because
Yeah.
you'd be on the GS scale.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, oh, and then the other question about the public service loan forgiveness. No, I would reference like the public service loan forgiveness website. Like Ryan kind of already answered, you have to do 10 years. It's not like a 50-50 thing. It's, make sure the public service loan forgiveness, make sure you have like the proper loans through the US government and everything like that. And that's like a separate thing for the military. Yeah. Cool.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Parmenter and Dr. Nolasco, for taking your time to give us this awesome webinar. I answered so many questions.
Great.
Guys, if you haven't signed in yet, please sign in. And if not, have a good night.
All right. Thanks, guys. Good seeing you,
Thanks,
Ben.
guys. Yeah, you too. You too. All right.
Bye.
Bye.